record on this. Welcome everybody to Who Do You Want to Be podcast, and I am very excited today to be interviewing my friend Steve Olson, all the way from Florida, across the other side of the world. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, Louise, good to see you.
And I got to spend some time with Steve and his lovely wife on my big 7-week trip around the US, and I just loved you guys. So I wanted the world to see more about you and what you're all about. So you have an incredible story of your journey of your life and with Jesus. And I know you do a lot of different things. You've written a book, and you've got another book being edited. So I thought we'll start with the beginning. And why don't you share a little bit about your story? I know you told me a little bit about what it was like before you had that encounter with God, and then what happened to you, because I think it's such an incredible story. So please share.
I will give you the brief version because I could talk about this for a little bit. So, well, like a lot of husbands, after 14 years of marriage, my wife got born again, and she grew up in church and I didn't. So, from the biker lifestyle, all of a sudden she was going to church, and I started going with her to keep peace in the family, but it just was 4-year period. But I was chronic alcoholic at the time, and I had given up. I was hopeless. I got tired of breaking promises, that I meant to keep, and so I was just going to drink and pour concrete till I fell over in the concrete.
Mm.
I started going to church, and I got a whole bunch of really good theology, but it wasn't playing out in my life. But on the way home one night, construction worker in Wisconsin, people act like drinking and driving is legal. So
Right.
on my way home, I'd been drinking after work and gotten a pretty horrific accident. I slid through a stop sign in the wet snow, and I got slid out in front of a car, got T-boned in the side of my truck. It blew the topper off, blew all my tools out, shot me out the back window that was broken, which is pretty miraculous because I'd usually have a hard time crawling through it. But it shot me through. My truck landed in one ditch. I landed in another ditch. I died in the ditch. When I woke up, there's red lights and chaos, and it was crazy, a mess. And two officers standing with their back to me, guarding the body. And I woke up.
Wow.
And I walked up behind them and kind of scared them a little bit. But what happened is this God that I knew in my head through theology, I had an experience with in the ditch after I died and not woked up. The first thing was just like, he was there, he was large, and he was in charge. I felt his authority, and so I called it my Isaiah moment. Woe is me.
Wow.
But that only lasted about a second. And then it's like he just reached down and loved me right where I was. And epic moment of shame and guilt. He loved me. I said, really? Well, you got me. It's freshly redeemed. I'm cleaning up the language for you here. I said, really? Who? You got me. And
I love
so
it.
it literally was the goodness of God that led to repentance. And I haven't drank since that day. I fell in love with Jesus that day. I woke up a different man. The old man really did die in that ditch, and the new man woke up, and life just changed on impact, which is the name of our ministry, and that's why it's called, because literally on impact, everything changed.
Wow. I remember you telling me this story, and you really took me to the moment, and I want to take you to the moment, because the moment when you were really clinically dead, and you had paramedics or whatever around, police, and in that moment that you woke up and you said you saw him and you felt his authority. What did you see and feel? Like, what exactly did you visually see him? Did you feel this presence? I feel like you said he hugged you or something. I want to know what that was like.
I didn't like physically see him, but his presence was so tangible. It's like the first moment was he was letting me know how big he was, you
Wow.
know. It's just, this is all powerful, all everything. God is here. But then in the next moment, it was just his kindness. I remember just like a surreal peace. I could almost feel the weight of this on my shoulders. And, I'm looking, there's jaws of life working over here. And I heard people bad. I ended up with some pretty serious charges out of this deal as well. And so, right in the middle, it really was my epic moment of shame, epic moment of guilt. But this is where the title of my first book came from, is in my most dishonorable moment, he honored me.
Wow.
And that turned around into honor and reverence for him. Or so honor begets honor. And so my book tells pretty explicitly what all went on inside of me there. But that experience is what led into everything I do in ministry.
Mm.
I say when I met God in the ditch is when I first met my true self.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's our identity is in Him. And when you have an encounter experience with Him, when you're meeting Him, you're actually meeting yourself because you're in His image. And so out of that ministry or out of that experience, my first ministry after I went to school at a couple places for 2 years, was with guys, addicts. I had a residential place. In school, they said, don't bring your homework with you, don't be too open and transparent and all of that. And I pretty much flew in the face of that. I invited them into the house and they lived with me, had up to 14 guys at one time. And I was transparent and I loved them. But at the same time, most places will deal with your behavior or your externals. That doesn't take any discernment whatsoever. I
Mm.
mean, I can look at most people and the way they dress and I can kind of make an assessment of them. That doesn't take any discernment.
Yeah.
So what I did is I planted honor in them because by the time they got to me, they're usually coming out of jail. They wore out their wife and they can't see their kids and their parents gave up a long time ago. They got no license, they got no job, they got no money. They're walking in and you can just feel the shame on them. And the first thing I did was pretty much what I introduced them to the kindness of God. And I would always tell every one of them that, you know, there's honor, there's something to honor, and there's greatness, there's gold inside of everyone. You might not remember what it was, you might never have known, but it's been there since before your mother's womb, and it's in there, and that's what I'm aiming at. We'll deal with stuff along the way, but if I can connect there, and just hearing that someone thinks that there's honor inside of you when you're feeling so shame bound, you can almost see them get air back in their lungs right from that point. And so it really is just something that, in my experience, it became part of me. The kindness of God is the first thing I want people to meet when we have an encounter, because I'm a visual aid on earth, so I should represent well. So,
Yeah. Listening to you, Steve, there's so much depth in what you say, and I feel like you've been able to mirror the experience that you had. Like you said, you place honor on people because it's like a mirror of the profound experience you had. And what I love about you that I just love about you is that you're so real. And that here you were a bikie, you were drinking too much, and you were so genuine and real about that. And you're so relatable to people, because you are like, I was there and this is what happened. And from that moment on, that impact moment, then my life changed. And I just think there's so much authenticity in what you say and how you say it. And that's why it connects with people so much. So tell me more about honor, because that was something you said to me about, it's about relationship. And I can, you've spoken about the authority and the bigness of God and the kindness, and how that had such an impact on you that it just, all the shame fell away. So tell me about, honor and identity. Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, I'll start with honor. I have a definition right on the front of my book. To place or recognize something of value in another. By speaking something honoring, you can actually like take something and place it right in them. That's my experience, and that's actually one of the definitions. Most people understand the verse about giving honor where honor is due.
Mm.
And that's kind of a given, but that also leaves you the option of withholding your honor if they aren't performing correctly.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The book that Honor Begets Honor is written off of First Peter 2:17, I think it is, but it says, honor all people. I haven't found the wiggle room in that part yet. Honor all people, love the brethren, fear God, and honor the king. Now, in context, you could place that each one is honor, because love the brethren. If there's love, there's going to be honor involved. So I just took part of those, and so there's really no way around it. When honor has to flow every direction. Well, one of the quotes out of my book is, until you can be honorable in the midst of dishonor, it's just lip service. Because I think that's when it's most powerful and life changing. When you don't have it coming, when you have not earned it, and someone does it, that's amazing grace. And
Wow.
grace always contains power, and so you can call people up, and honor flows from the top, like in an organization, in a church, or wherever. The person at the top sets the culture. So if
Mm.
you want a culture of honor, which from Bethel to everyone else is talking about that, it starts with headship.
Yeah.
And then you will have a culture of honor. If you're waiting for them to honor you before you honor back, you're going to end up with a bunch of people that are scared to make a move. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
with honor is freedom, and so the identity piece. Um, we have. I was living in a lot of lies, of lies and labels. Life will put them on you, you know. And somewhere back, maybe when you were 2, 3, 4 years old, or maybe later, you had a traumatic incident, or you grew up in a traumatic house, and you start putting on identities that help you fit wherever you are. When I
Mm.
wanted to be a drunken biker, I bought a motorcycle and started drinking with bikers, and voila. And then once
Yeah.
inside of there, I started adapting more to the lifestyle to more fit in, and
Mm.
you lose yourself somewhere over the time.
Yeah.
That quote I have, when I met Jesus in the ditch was the first time I met my truest self. Soul laid bare. I mean, all my masks were off,
Mm.
and entered him, and I met my truest self. And I am continuing to meet my truest self, with every encounter with him. I love the verse in I don't know. I'm bad at addresses. I think it's in Corinthians.
Me too.
But it says, and now we look face to face with unveiled face, as in a mirror. We become
Mm,
like him.
mm,
And so in the intimacy with him and encounter with him, we become more like him. And the whole Live by Design program that we do started with a conference that Rhonda put on. It was a women's conference, and she did it joint with another church, and it was called Who Am I?
mm.
That's a two-part question. We ask God, Who am I? And he says, Well, who am I? The second question answers the first, because we're made in his image, and like he called us holy before the foundation of the earth.
Mm,
He
mm,
spoke it into us before we got to church and learned how to speak it back to him, with words he creates. And so with encounters with him, we realize our true identity. And the more we chase after him and love him, the more we, and the cool part about it is once you can recognize Christ in yourself, now I can see the Christ in Louise.
yeah,
If I have labels I believe about myself, probably what I'm going to see in you, that projection thing,
yeah,
and
that's right. Yeah.
here I am, the more grace I have for everyone else. So,
And as you talk about identity, I think that's what I noticed and observed about you that was different from what I'd seen in other people. And that is that you can talk about the scripture and the word, but when you speak about it, it actually feels like an encounter and relational as opposed to words and anything that feels religious. And I feel like it's so uh it's so profound, the experience that you had around your identity, that it's hard for you not to see that in other people and not to be able, you're able to articulate it, I guess, in a way that is so relational and real. And I love that. So I love listening to you talk about it, because you talk about it in a way that I haven't heard anyone else talk about it. And so what was that like for you? Tell me about the Live by Design. Tell me about what that's all about.
well, it formed actually. Most of the stuff we have in it came from working with addicts. We had them live with us, anywhere between 3 and 14 of them, for from 2005 until a couple years ago. And most of it is just kind of what I did randomly with guys, and it's all identity based, and it's a lot of what I just told you, but I did it all relationally.
Yeah.
I, I, I told guys that it's my job to love the hell out of you,
Mm,
and that's if you can encounter the love of God through me, then you will know Him and you'll meet yourself and this rest of this stuff. What happens? It's I'm allergic to performance based Christianity,
yeah.
because you become what you behold, and if you're looking at the sin instead of the image of Christ that's in everyone, then you are beholding the sin more than the image makes
Yeah, that's good.
image. And it's shame is the cage that keeps people in prison. It was my shame that held me in chronic alcoholism. The other thing I like to say about my experience with him in the ditch is, in the middle of my shame, he removed my shame.
Mm,
That's why I was free. And so to bring that in with people, he's God is very relational. The whole plan is family relation. From the beginning, the triune God got together face to face and said, "Let us create man in our image." And we were invited into that. And since the cross, it's open, and you know there is no distance between us and God. And so when we get into performance-based stuff, that's inauthentic. That's more, it's empowering, amazing grace. And when we realize that God isn't angry, He isn't, and authenticity, I couldn't recover from alcoholism until I got real about myself.
Mm.
And I couldn't, and the same goes as a pastor. I get real tired of people with their Sunday face on.
Yeah.
How, how are you today? Oh, I'm blessed and
Yeah.
obedient. Really?
Yeah.
I
Be
see, I
real.
seen you. So what
Yeah.
I found is addicts have everyone has the same issues and dysfunctions as addicts. The rest of us just hide it better.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree. It's like put the game face on. It's being like what is it?
so I,
Functioning.
yeah,
Function.
so I just, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's like a functioning, not a necessarily a functioning alcoholic, but a functioning, Christian, as opposed to let's get real about all of us struggle with different things in our lives. And so what
Yeah.
is, go on.
Well, yeah, it's just like when Jesus taught us how to pray. He said, don't be like the hypocrites on the corner that pray to be heard for their fancy words. I've had, I think a lot of us prayed better before we learned how, you know? It just
Yeah.
authentic, gut real, and that's what, we were never made just to do church together. We were made to do life together, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And vulnerability and transparency is the point of healing. So if we're hiding and pretending everything is okay without just being free to say, this is what's going on, let me be authentic with you. I had a guy come into Impact that said, I'm going to tell you straight out, I don't trust people. I don't trust God, and I don't even believe in God. And I said, I appreciate your honesty. Come in.
Yeah.
And about 2 months later, after just loving him anyways, and and being authentic and thanking him for his, he said, you know, 2 weeks ago, I kneeled out in that living room out there and I prayed to a God that I didn't believe in to remove my character defects and to replace them with peace. And he did. And he just started bawling.
Mm.
He was raw and authentic. He didn't play
Yeah.
no games. He didn't say, hey, I'm super Christian and play along with the game because he's
Yeah.
living with the pastor.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the key. I feel like when people are vulnerable, they need to be treated with love and grace, because a lot of times I think people are scared to be vulnerable because they don't trust other people, because when they have been vulnerable, their trust has been abused, or people haven't known how to help them in the church, outside of the church, anywhere. And I feel like often it's really soft-hearted, sensitive people that actually find themselves in that place of struggle. They're emotionally intuitive, and they care a lot, but then they struggle, and then it's hard. You've got to handle that with delicacy and with being honest, but they need people like you that can come in and just go, I get it, where you're at.
Yeah, and I don't expect it right off the bat. Love is a commandment, trust is earned, you know,
Yeah.
and and I don't even like telling people I'm a pastor when I first meet them
Mm.
because I want to meet their real self. you know,
Yeah.
hey, I'm Pastor Steve. All of a sudden, they start talking the way they think a pastor might want to hear.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
believe after I build relationship with them, then I have earned the right to speak into them. And I never call people out, I call them up by reminding them who they really are.
Yeah.
This behavior here, this alcoholism, this abuse, whatever, that's not you. Let's shoot for the real you, and the other stuff will fall off when you
Yeah.
realize the amazing person you already are.
Yeah. And so that relationship that you build when you're working with people is a key. And can you just tell me, like, what is that? what does that look like for someone when they come on? Like you had people living with you that were addicts, like just maybe 2 or 3 keys that you've noticed, or patterns that you noticed, or what you did that helped them to move forward from one step to the next, because they're coming to you in a bad place, right? So what happens next?
Well, first off, transparency, I've been where they are,
Yeah.
and I know what they're feeling, and I don't start talking about addiction right away. I don't start preaching to them. I don't, any of this. I said, sit down, have a cup of coffee. Let's just visit for a little bit, and I make some promises right off the bat. I said, I'll tell you straight up, I'll go to hell and back with you as long as you're honest.
Yeah, that's
If you're
good.
not honest, we're wasting each other time. And then I give them the second part that I already told you. And I believe there's gold inside everyone. I didn't find mine until I was 38 years old. I was wrapped up in everything you are. I narrowly escaped prison sentence in that lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother miracle story,
Yeah.
and I relate to them where they are, and I give them the opportunity to speak freely, if they are used to using the Oppenheimer, the F word. If they talk naughty, um, I don't correct them. I just let them be themselves, and try not to. First thing when I meet them to the door, they'd say, "I'm looking for Pastor Steve." I'd say, "Yeah, I'm him." Really, you don't look like one. Oh, thank you. Come on in.
That's
I
what
mean,
I
that,
love about you. You just so real. It's so cool. That's awesome. Yeah. So I feel like people are gonna get the sense of what it's like, what you do with them in your life by Live by Design program, and how you relate to them. And I just see this open door with you, Steve, that you and Rhonda, that you have this ability to just embrace people where they're at. And I think that it doesn't matter if someone's an addict or whether they're a CEO, or they're just struggling with shame, with identity, at whatever level. It doesn't matter, how successful they are or where they're at. You have this ability to come in and really shine that mirror, which is really beautiful. So I know that you've got your Honor Begets Honor book. I know that you've got another book in edit that you were working on when I was over there. Tell me a little bit about that, and then I'm going to ask you where people can find you, so that they can connect with you and see what you're all about.
yeah, the book that I'm having edit stage. I like writing a lot better than I like editing, so it's slowed down a
Yeah.
little bit. But it's a result of a prophetic directive. I have a friend, Pat Bruner. She's actually Pat and Fred are our covering. We're ordained through them. She's very prophetic, and she asked to see the model for Live by Design, and I showed her. We have a backbone that we try and follow.
Yeah.
A methodology, but we vary it according to the person and the Holy Spirit and what they need. It's not a cookie cutter thing.
Yeah.
And she looked at it and she said, "This needs to be a book.
Mm.
You need to write a book about this." And the thing about her is she can talk normal, but then when she gets prophetic, her eyes kind of change, and it's like, oh, that was a directive. And so there's also a promise attached to the publishing of this, but it's called Kingmaker, Father Make Them One. And then the subtitle is Releasing Spiritual Inheritance and Identity Through Relationship.
Love it.
It's um, it goes through a lot, and there's going to be it's going to be interactive. It goes through the different sections like we kind of do in our program. First, we look at people's personality, because God made you Louise the way He did, and He did it on purpose. So in developing, we don't want to lose the way you were created,
Yeah.
but we want to emphasize your strengths and downplay your weaknesses so you can be the best natural version of Louise. that you can be. But then we look at who you are and who are you becoming in his image.
Mm.
And then the third part of it is alignment, aligning the two, your natural personality and who you are and who you are becoming, so that you remain authentically Louise as you're becoming more like him, because we've got enough Christian clones around, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and then along the way we look at purposes and passions and goals and dreams, and kind of get a rubber hit the road plan. And it's a 6-month program that we do that the book is based off of. And it's a Zoom meeting every couple weeks with a lot of work. But one of the things that's in the book and in the program is learning to leverage the power of incremental change.
Okay.
It's a lot of people just kind of they have a word from God. I'm supposed to be,
Yeah,
super evangelist or whatever, and then they just don't do anything.
yeah,
Got to work with them, so we get
yeah,
real about how you're going to get there.
yeah.
The
That's
book
good.
the book goes into a lot of that and more. So
It sounds really practical as well, because your first book, I feel like, gives the concept and the big picture and the going deeper into honor and identity, but this one sounds like it's how do you actually do it, how do you execute it, which is amazing. And so people can do your programs online. So can I send them to a website? Where can they find you?
I've got 2 spots. Our website is non-functional at the moment, so
That's
I
okay.
give you Facebook. Impact Ministries has a page on Facebook,
Yep.
and contact through there, or my personal email is steve.impact@yahoo.com, and send a message to either one of those places and I can get information. I'll be posting a bunch more how-tos on my Facebook page, because my website just went down right before we did this.
That's okay.
So
And
I'll put it on Facebook, and like how to get the book and message me, or it's on Kindle.
awesome.
I don't
Yeah,
think it. Yeah, I don't
that's
think it might still be on Amazon. I can't remember. So.
okay. And I think I know that you share a lot of great insights and powerful insights on your Facebook page as well. I've seen some of the things that you've put there, that revelation, and I feel like people can get to know you there as well and sort of get a feel for how you work and who you are. But it's just such a pleasure and a privilege to have you on our podcast. I am really excited for who's going to meet you and more lives that you're going to transform. You're the real deal, and you're highly intelligent as well, and I love how you pull down the intellect of heaven, but through the lens of relationship and identity and honor. So thank you for coming on. And I am really looking forward to coming back and seeing you guys again in Florida. It was so great meeting you. And it's not very often that you come across someone like you, got so much depth that you can just really connect so quickly with people and see into them the gold, like you said. So thank you so much for coming on.
But we've still got your room waiting for you at the other end of the house here anytime.
Okay.
Thanks,
Beautiful
thanks,
Florida.
thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I love catching up with you.
Oh, you too. Thanks, Steve.